we go. We are live. Hi, it's Carolyn J. Carpenter. I'm back. It's so nice to see all y'all. I am super excited today because we have special guests that I am going to introduce, and I'm going to tell you all about them. I'm going to put there we go. Let's put that on. There we go. Hollywood resumes. So this is such a great, there's so much synergy in the world and in our world as Hollywood readers, and all the things that we're trying to do to get people to understand the nuances of breaking down screenplays, the nuances of getting a job in Hollywood once you have that understanding of breaking down screenplays. And so we have in our courses, as most of you know, we have the screen reader system. And then, hi, I see y'all showing up. Good to have you here. We have the screen reader system where we break down in 5 kind of easy steps how to write coverage, how to break down a screenplay and how to write coverage. And then we also within our courses have a thing called Getting the Gig. And in Getting the Gig, we give you all the things that everything we can possibly think of what will help you figure out the kind of job you want, first of all, and then how to get that job. And so to be totally transparent, I haven't had to give a resume, do a resume in a really long time. Like I've just been referred for a really long time. So I was like, I haven't done a resume in the current Hollywood now. So I literally Googled how do I write a Hollywood resume? And Hollywood resumes popped up. And I was like, what the? So they have many offerings. We're going to talk about those today. And so I actually took one of their webinars and was so very, very impressed. And so I reached out to them and said, hey, I have some peeps that I think might want to hear what you have to say. And they're lovely and agreed to join me. So let me introduce them to you now. Hello. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to introduce Cindy. This is Cindy. And hello, ladies. We got some girl power. Yeah, girl power in the house today.
Yes. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit about yourself and then kind of how you came up with Hollywood resumes. It's such a great idea and so needed. So tell me a little bit about it.
Hi, I'm Angela Silak. I work as a development executive in the industry, but we started Hollywood Resumes back in 2016 after kind of realizing that there was a need for it and that people really didn't know how to write resumes or really break into the industry. And including, when we were starting out, I didn't know what to do to get my resume seen or to meet the right people or any of that, and thought, okay, there's probably a business opportunity here that we could help others trying to break in. And Cindy and I interned together back in 2010 and then worked together in 2012 and became great friends and decided, okay, well, let's start this business. So I'll let Cindy introduce herself.
Yeah. So my first ever internship in Hollywood was as a script reader, completely untrained. So I love that you guys are all figuring out how to actually do it because I definitely didn't when I first started. I'm a writer and producer, and I've worked in various aspects of the industry. I worked in entertainment marketing. I worked in development at a production company for a lit manager. So I've seen a lot of different pieces of the industry and how it comes together. And yeah, I'm very excited to help you guys figure out how to take the next step in your careers today.
Yeah, this is just so great because you guys are working in the industry currently and you're saw this need because it really is a huge need and nobody trains this, which is one of the reasons why we took this on as Hollywood Gatekeepers too, because I had the same experience as a young reader, trying to figure it out and just just pounding the pavement, getting a job and working it out and doing, some companies train you a little better than others. But the more that I worked, the more I got my own groove. And the more I worked, the more I figured out ways to write coverage that then got me referred to other companies to write more coverage. And then I sort of developed my own system doing that, which is this to me is not just a course, it's a movement to really make it so that no script reader is that person that doesn't know what they're doing and they're covering a script that someone's deciding whether or not they're going to spend millions of dollars on. It just is so absurd. I can't even get my head around it. So it's that's what we really want to do. We want to be able to have these qualified readers that can come in and be paid to read screenplays and really do a good job. It's so very important in my opinion. And so that's why we took it on. And you guys are a perfect fit for that because it's not only about reading scripts, it's about being able to break down a screenplay, which then reading scripts and that ability can lead you to many, as you guys know very well, many different careers and many different things about, reading scripts. So we have some questions that we came up with, but all y'all that are here, feel free to put any questions that you have in the chat. We would love to see what your questions are. But one of the questions that we got that I think is kind of interesting and very, very current is, what keywords do I need to know to get past AI? Like, or in general, how has AI helped or hindered resumes and resume building? Like, what do you ladies think?
So this is one of my like passion topics.
Oh, I love it. Awesome. So good.
I think people get a little bit more scared of the AI that's used in hiring than we necessarily need to, at least at this stage, right? Like AI is changing very frequently, but right now it's mostly used in applicant tracking systems, which are sometimes called ATS. And those are not like one big robot overlord system. There's no one way to like beat the ATS. Basically, hiring managers get inundated with hundreds of resumes and they needed a way to parse through and make sure that they were weeding people out that just didn't make sense. For example, I've gotten resumes for jobs I was hiring from people who like didn't live in LA where the job was based. And they were like, if you're ever hiring for this role that I'm qualified for in Miami, please let me know. And that was a huge waste of my time as someone hiring for not that role, not in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose of these ATS systems is to make hiring managers' lives easier. And so what they can do is customize different filters and different keywords. So it's not like there's one ATS for Hollywood jobs that if you can get the best, version of your resume for that one robot, it's going to all be fine. What you actually should do is just look at the job posting and see what words they use there. That's probably the same keywords that they're plugging in on their back end. And you'll be a match if you have those keywords in your resume. And they should be like with context. I've heard terrible advice to just copy and paste the job posting in a white font somewhere in the back of your resume so that like the human can't see it, but the ATS will see it. That's not going to happen because eventually a person, a real live human, is going to read your resume. And if it doesn't align, it doesn't matter that it got through that filter. So you don't want to do like little sneaky tricks. You just want to actually look at the job posting, assess, can I do this? Why can I do this? Use the words that they put there. And that's what's going to be coming up with whatever algorithm back end they're using. So I wouldn't worry about how to beat it. I would worry about how do I respond to this job posting that indicates that I'm qualified, because that's all it's there to do.
So good. That is some terrible advice.
Yeah, don't do that. If you take away nothing else, like don't try to cheat systems.
Yep. That's like writers that make the font in their screenplay really small or make their margins really wide. I call that snaking the pages so that their screenplay will fit within the page count. It's like, no, don't do that. For one, you mess up your page count. And two, that's like, who's going to hire you when they figure that out? That's like such an integrity thing. So that's some terrible advice. So yeah, and I do think that in general with AI, it's not AI that's going to take your job or make your life harder. It's the people that work with AI and can embrace it. They're going to take your job. They're the ones that are going to be like not afraid of it and jumping in. So we plan on doing a lot of stuff of teaching AI and letting people see how you can use it to benefit your life and make your life easier, and then why you can make it around the idea of it being scary or anything like that. So good. I mean, that makes so much sense. And definitely being able to, when we talk about our reading program, we have, as our graduates start to graduate, they start looking at what kind of reader are they? What kind of scripts do they like? What genres do they like? And then finding the producers and the people that do the things you already like. And it sounds like this is a really similar idea, is that you find the posting that matches who you are, what you're doing, and then that's the synergy and that's the fit. And that makes so much sense. Really good. Exactly. So one of our other people asked, what should I put on my resume if I don't have any job experience in Hollywood? So if you're just getting started, what should you put on your resume?
Okay, so it doesn't really matter if you were paid in a job in entertainment or not in entertainment, if you got skills that were transferable for the role that you're applying for, those are the things that go into your experience section. So that could be work in another industry, that could be volunteer experience, that could be leadership in school. There could be all kinds of places that you get experience. So what you want to do is look at the job posting and see what kinds of things they're asking for. Are they asking for administrative skills? Are they asking for communication skills, management skills? What are those key things that they are looking for? And then think, okay, you can literally make a chart and take the job posting and type in, okay, where did I get this transferable skill? And that would mean that thing, that piece of experience goes into your resume, and you create bullet points around it to show that you have that skill, even though it was in a different context. And that's how you will begin to craft your resume. And then as you start to build jobs in entertainment that are more relevant, some of those other things will come off over time.
So good. That makes so much sense. And it is that same thing of really like, I mean, the first step in anything when you're applying for anything to me is to know yourself, to know what your strengths are and to know and tell your story. And you guys talk about that. I love that in your materials. You talk about how your resume isn't just this like bullet point of your, experience. It's your story. You're telling a story about why the experience that you have or the things that you're doing all fit into the new job so that they want to find someone. And I talk about this in the reader world too, in the screenplays, like we want to find that good screenplay. Readers aren't trying to say, no, we hate you, you're a terrible writer. They're like, the producers want that good screenplay. We want to hire you. If you're the right person, we're digging through trying to find you. So being able to really say, look, it's me because of this. And it's really good advice. That makes so much sense. Love it so much. So let us know, you guys. I see you showing up, more people showing up. So nice to have you guys here. And if you're watching the replay, welcome. Super happy to have you here as well. And so what's your number one piece of resume advice?
Our number one is actually that your resume should tell a story, which you just touched on.
There it is. Yeah.
Specifically, the story is why you're qualified for that role. So you should be thinking about, what elements does a story need? It needs a beginning, a middle, and an end. It needs context. It needs settings. So you want to start off with, who you are. Introduce yourself with your name, with your header that should be on the top of your resume. There's some weird trend to sometimes put it on the bottom that doesn't really make any sense. You don't leave a conversation and say, by the way, this is who I am. Like you enter a room, handshake moment, hi, I'm Cindy. And then the most important piece of this story, that context that's going to set everything up, should be what your resume starts with. And then everything that flows from there should be different, I guess, plot points of, why you're right for this job. You're not trying to put like your entire biography out there. You're not trying to be like, this is my whole life story, everything that makes me me, but you're trying to have basically just like a short missive of like, this is who I am and why I'm qualified for this role, and communicate that in a clear, storied way.
So good. You can liken it to writing screenplays, where we talk about this too, of like, we call it screenplay stew, where you're like, I'm going to put this genre and I'm going to write, it's a country Western thing, but wouldn't it be cool if then an alien landed? And then wouldn't it be cool if then like some horror thing happened? And pretty soon you're jumping genres and you've got the screenplay stew, and it's like this big mess because you're trying to show all the things that are cool and that you can do. And same kind of thing, it'll just be a big conglomerate mess if you're trying to include everything. And then you'll overwhelm the person, as opposed to being so succinct and spot on. That makes really, really good sense. So when you're structuring your resume, where does the education go? How do you structure a resume?
So it really, again, this goes back to your story, right? So if you're a recent graduate or if you're still in school, then you have your header, hi, I'm Angela. I'm a student, or I'm a recent grad, and your education would go at the top.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've been working for a couple of years, it probably wouldn't make sense to say, hey, I'm Angela, here's where I graduated from, and here's my experience. Instead, you would lead with your most recent piece of experience. If you're much further along in your career, then there might be something like a professional summary that might come in the front and education goes to the bottom. But it really just depends on how recently you've graduated and if the education gives context to the rest of your story.
So when you're doing that, what are the most important like skills to put on there? And like, where would you put Hollywood Gatekeepers? If someone's been in our course, where would they put that? How does that go?
So that could go in the education section. You could have, your university, and you could have coursework and put Hollywood Gatekeepers in the name of the course underneath it. You could also do a section at the bottom of your resume it could be called profile. It could be called skills and interests, where you list concrete skills that you have, certifications, computer software, hardware, those kinds of things. That could also go at the bottom. So it's kind of up to you what fits the best. If you have a bunch of different pieces of coursework that you've done, that could go in the education section, but it would most likely go at the bottom if you've been working for a while. And if you have not, and this is maybe your first thing that you've done in Hollywood, then that would be really important to have at the top of your resume.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So James is asking, I wore many hats on a short film I made during the pandemic. Are small projects like that notable, or do they get dismissed?
So this one really depends so much on context. So if you're just going to list the name of the short film, that's not going to help at all, because most likely people haven't heard of it. Even like the Oscar short films, most people don't recognize them by just their titles. So if you wanted to, you could put the title of the short film sort of as the company name, and your job as whatever your job was on the film, like producer, editor, director, writer, and then have bullet points that explain what you actually did and give context. Like on a horror short film, it's helpful if you can talk about, any awards or accolades that the film got. So if it made it into any film festivals, you definitely want to list that. And you want to make sure that the skills that you got from that short film that are hopefully transferable to the jobs you're applying for are the ones that are coming out. If you're applying mostly, let's say for for reader roles, because that's what we're talking about here, but on the film you were the gaffer and the editor and the DIT, like that's actually not going to translate so much. So you might be better off putting something like that in that profile section that Angela mentioned under accomplishments, and say worked on or served as gaffer, DIT, editor, whatever other crew positions I mentioned on, horror short film. Or you might decide, I need to leave this off because it's not adding anything. So just think about, what is this experience adding? What do I need it to tell? What can't be told in any other way? If it's a student film, you might want to put it under education. So you would have your degree, and then you would list, accomplishments or achievements, and say I produced 7 short films, or whatever the case might be. So again, really depends on the specifics, but I hope that that's a helpful way to think about whatever your own experience is.
And again, it's always just keep in mind I see a lot of our students in here, and I see a lot of our Insider Track members. Welcome, you guys. It's same thing that I harp on you all the time about creating your own story and creating, who do you want to read for? What kind of coverage and things do you want to do? And then maybe you're wanting to do coverage. We have a lot of people that are in our programs learning how to do coverage because they want to work on set, or they want to work on other jobs, and that's a great foundation for you to have. So again, it's telling your story and being able to know, like she's saying, even if you had, let's say you did some independent films or you did some student films, and they'd be part of your education, but if one of them was a student film that then became independent and took off, was in festivals, then you might move that up into the area of something where you've got some recognition for it. And then also just making sure that if you wore many hats, pick the hat that's, that makes sense with the job posting. So pick the hat that they're most likely to be like, oh, good, they have experience in blah, blah, blah. And then that's the thing that they'll be looking at. So Rachel's asking, do you have insight as to whether 1-page or 2-page resumes are more professional?
It depends on your level of experience. For most people, a 1-page resume, you just have to remember that hiring managers are spending seconds just glancing at your resume to see if they want to read further. So the more concise that you can be, the better. We only really say that 2-page resumes are if you have over 10 years of experience and you're looking for really senior level, like VP and above level roles, then you would have a 2-pager because you would need it, or you would have a page that explains your experience and then a page of credits maybe. But for most people, 1 page is fine.
Yeah.
And certainly for entry level, no one is going to be looking at an entry level resume that is more than a page. Like if you think about it in terms of a screenplay, you always want to go for what has the most white space, what's the shortest script. That's what I'm going to read first. It's exactly the same with hiring managers. So like if you're starting out, figure out what you could take off of your resume because they're just not going to even bother reading it.
And would the same be true if you're trying to cram a bunch of stuff onto a resume? Is it better to have more white space and be able to read it easily and simply?
Yeah, if you're cramming, you're being too precious about your experience. Just figure out just look at that job posting and what is the most relevant and take out the extra stuff.
Yeah. So good. I can't stress enough. I'm constantly harping on this, how busy everybody is. They're like, especially if it's a producer, I call them the clowns of the circus, because not because they're clowns, but because they're spinning plates and they're juggling and they're like, booking the caterer on one thing and then they're reading a script and then they're talking to an actor. They're just like they wear so many. It's all one hat technically, but they don't have time to sit down and be like, oh, what is this font that I can't see that's 8 point font? They can't.
The average hiring manager spends 3 to 10 seconds looking at your resume. So one thing that I like to do is to like zoom out of the resume, put it at 60%, and then spend 10 seconds. And can I see the keywords? Can I see the important information in that, quick mindset? If it's too crowded, I am not going to be able to do that. So I just saw a job posting with 750 plus applicants. So imagine a person who it's not their full-time job to sift through those applicants and they have to read 750 resumes.
Wow. Yeah, right. I love it. Rachel's like, thanks for the succinct explanation and reality check. I love it, Rachel, how you were also honest about, oh yeah, I've done that white thing background. She's like, so yeah, but it is like, we are all about reality checks here and all about like practical of just being like, it's not this mystery, and Hollywood is not this thing that, it's just like a job. It's getting a job. It's like, it's just people are people. They're really busy. You got to think about the person and put yourself in their shoes. You guys are writers. You're writers. You can step in those shoes. You can create characters, like create that character of the person that's trying to hire you. What are their hopes and fears and dreams and wants, and what are they trying to avoid, and what do they not want to see? And be that person for a second and look at your own resume, and things will jump out at you. Like, I would say to do that with your screenplays too, but things will jump out of you instantly. Like, it's really amazing. So Tony's asking, or Mr. Tony, I guess, Mr. Tony Star 1 is asking, are templates worthwhile? What do you guys think about templates?
So I don't know exactly what you mean by a template. I'm going to assume like a fancy graphically designed template. Like it is helpful to, have a very clean format. So we try to, have that format, in a clean, concise way. But if you're talking about like a graphic template that you get from Canva or InDesign or something like that, no, they're not really worthwhile for a few reasons. One is that most of those ATS that we talked about at the beginning can't actually read complicated templates or complicated formats. So anything with a lot of tables or graphics, it's just not going to get through at all. So you're better off with something linear, something black and white. A little pop of color is not going to make or break you, but black and white never hurt anyone either. And you want to make sure it's readable to anyone of any color reading ability. And human hiring managers also want to see something familiar because, again, they're looking at this document in under 10 seconds. They want to know, where can I look to get that key information? So if you're doing this, if you're downloading this like very pretty template that's a little bit like confusing or with pizzazz or with too much like logos or backgrounds, they're just going to get confused. So minimalist, simpler, all of that is better, but you also want it to be a nicely formatted document. So if you're talking about like a nice black and white linear template that you found through Word, that's okay. But if you're talking about a graphic format, no.
Yeah. There's a thing called form over function in marketing, and that's like, it looks really pretty, but the function of it is to tell somebody where the event is, and if they can't read it, they're not going to show up. So being able to like make sure that your form, your design and your form isn't outweighing your function. I mean, what do you think about people that put their picture on their resume? Do you think that's a good thing, or?
It suggests that you want to be hired for the way that you look. So no. We don't advocate for putting your picture on your resume, and And really, like recruiters and HR people really don't want to see pictures on your resume. That's something that for actors, yes, but for everybody else, no.
That's really good, because there's been in the marketing world, people put their picture on the resume, and that makes sense in terms of their, because it's a different thing. You're marketing yourself in a different kind of way, but that makes total sense. I love it. So I forget who's the audio. Oh, it's Alex, right? Is the audio file girl. This helps so much as my CV has camera, lighting, audio operator skills, and CERT is 2 pages long, but working on building a reader resume is more precise, right? Because you're just getting started. Totally makes sense. Are hiring managers critical of career gaps, such as leaving off 2 years of bartending because it's irrelevant to the role? What do you think about career gaps?
Usually not so much. And I just also want to say that like any gap that you may have had from 2020 to 2022 doesn't matter, because a lot of people had gaps during that time, and we're still close enough to, that timeline of COVID that people remember that it happened. Aren't going to have that read.
We're all in the gap together.
So if you like had to take if you didn't do anything, or if you had to take like some kind of a stopgap job that's not really relevant, like don't worry about it. Don't think twice about it. If you have, a 2-year gap's also not that bad if everything else is like very entertainment focused, and you just had to take 2 years off because of whatever life happens to all of us. Then it's probably better to keep that story cohesive of like, I interned at this production company and then at that one, and then I was an assistant, and no one's going to really worry too much about that gap. It also sort of depends how long ago it was. So if you're talking about like, you had a gap from 2010 to 2012, like, okay, like that's a very long time ago. Even like 2013 to 2015, like it's a while ago. Maybe you just want to start your resume later. But if you had a lot of different experiences and this gap would be a little bit glaring, I would encourage you to try to figure out ways in which bartending or something like it is relevant to the role. And there are things that can be relevant, like customer service and organizing inventory, and like, managing money and accounting and things like that that you might have been dealing with there. So think about, what skills did I get from this role that might actually play into whatever role I'm applying for. So that's, but think again about your story. Like, is this getting in the way of your narrative, or is it supporting your narrative? That's how we like to think about career gaps.
Yeah, awesome. And then within that, how important is it to put your volunteer experience, if you have volunteer experience? I think it's kind of an overall story, right?
Yeah, it goes right back to your story. So if you have transferable skills from the volunteer experience, you put it. That said, if you have a full resume and maybe not that many transferable skills, or you don't need that as an entry in your experience section, volunteer work is actually highly relevant as a talking point in an interview. And people really like to see people giving back to their community. So in that profile section at the very bottom of your resume, you can just list volunteer with whatever animal shelter, volunteer at whatever, just as a conversation starter. And that is a good thing to include always.
Yeah. And it's also good to do your research. And we talk about this in the, researching who you're going to reach out to. But if you're looking at a job posting, don't just, look at the posting and reply to the post. If you can know as much as possible about whoever posted that, go look at their company, look at their values, look at what they do, like be familiar with who you're posting to. And that's going to really connect you to them in such a different way than, dear sir, or dear ma'am, or whatever you put at the top, to whom it may concern, here's my stuff. It's like being able to really speak to their values and their world and everything that they're doing. That makes total sense. So good. So we're running out of time. This is a half an hour thing. There's so much more we could do. And Brian, I see your question, but I'm not exactly sure because it's a pretty big question. I'm going to go ahead and read it. And ladies, if you have something you want to kind of throw in there, but really, Brian, I would start at the beginning of this. We're going to post a replay for you and just slowly go through it and take notes and then apply the things that you're asking to the things that we've learned here today. And we have a lot of Brians. Are you in Insider Track, Brian, or Screener System? Because we have several Brians if you are. Let me take a stab at this. What if it's been many years since I've worked a jobby job. I love it. And I've studied cinema, media arts at a community college 10 years ago. You believe that your skills in analyzing screenplay are really strong and you have several sample coverages. I'm stuck how to even present yourself in a resume, especially given that I'm looking for a very first job in entertainment, hopefully as a reader. So I think we've kind of already answered that because it's like all the things that we talked about creating your story, finding things that are relevant, all the things. Do you have anything that you want to add that we haven't covered already? Or should he just go back to the beginning? What do you think?
I think we covered a lot of this. I would just say, like, not all a job doesn't have to be a jobby job in order to matter. So think about what you have been doing, and where did you get those skills from analyzing a screenplay? Like, put Hollywood Gatekeepers on there, that you did this training, and just think about what you might like. If you've been blogging about movies for a while, then that's okay also to include that, like, you run a weekly movie review blog. That's relevant. So just like, why do you think you're capable of doing this job? Put some of that on your resume in a way that feels provable.
I also think it's worth saying, like, in this type of case, when you have a really unusual career trajectory and something that's very relevant happened a long time ago, this is when you really start to forget about ATS completely. Go for a 2-column resume. Put your education at the top, like, so in one of the columns, that's at the top. So it shows that relevant piece of information, and then the experience on the other side. And then which everyone should really do, but it's really important, take the extra step to babysit your resume on your applications. Don't rely on applying through a company portal, but instead network your way in and get those referrals and do informational interviews and get people to meet you so that you can get your resume into a real person's hands. You're going to have to do a little bit of extra work to prove that you want the job. But once you get in, then you will start, building up your career from there.
So good. So spot on. And Kamara, I think that when, being an empty nester and then coming back is same kind of thing, right? So this is why we do so many things of bringing in guests, and like, in our insider track, we have you on the pipeline and we have you on the portal and we interview, and we're like trying to do as many things as we can to help our graduates get to know people on a personal level, so that you're not just being, getting past the algorithm and everything. So if you have something unusual, it could be a benefit, because it's like, you have an unusual story to tell. And I love James's comments too about, what do you think being a parent, that's real work. Like, I love that. Like, so many talk about communication skills and patience. So like, there are things, that can apply. And then it's just about, looking for the place to apply and looking for the jobs that you think might be a good fit with that. So if you're looking with a producer that has a company that, is run by moms, or there's so many ways that you could go about creating a connection where your work aligns with the things that they're looking for. It's just really, that's what it's all about. So this has been so fascinating. Like, I mean, there's so much more we could talk about. It's really amazing. So tell us a little bit about how people can get in touch with you. I do have a banner I'll share with your newsletter. So let's put that up. So tell us a little about where we can find you. Are you on social media, or where are you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, we're on Instagram and Facebook at Hollywood Resumes. So pretty simple. Please follow us. We also put out this free career tips newsletter. So we've got that link. Our website is hollywood-resumes.com. So you can see, we have a blog of every career tip that we've ever had on there. We also offer our services. You can learn more about what our offerings are. And we have a bunch of different courses and webinars. And so those are at hollywoodresumes.podia.com.
And there's, if they go on your website, can they get
the website and find all of that?
I think that's how we found it. Yeah. Because I took one of the courses, can't recommend it highly enough. So definitely, I just thought, I want to make sure we always vet when we have guests come on. And I was like, I mean, how happy were you when hollywoodresumes.com was available, right? It's like, Hollywood Gatekeepers, I was like, I cannot believe this is available. I was like, okay, this is meant to be for sure. So it is like, so I just was like, well, let's see what they got. And then I was like, oh, this is so great, because obviously you guys care about it. You're giving such good, current, solid advice. I love your approach. It's just, it's just so in line with what we're trying to do as well. So definitely, guys, go to their website, get on their newsletter, learn about these kinds of things, so it becomes second nature to you. Once it's second nature, it just becomes, those jobs become so much easier for you to find and attract and get to. And it's just like really, really spectacular. So on that note, there was one final, sans serif or serif font preferred.
I
Really?
prefer Sans because it's easier to read, but it's a personal choice. Just make sure people can read your resume.
There's that. We
Yeah,
want that.
Times New Roman is really outdated. So if you're going serif, pick like a more modern looking one.
That's a little insider trick. I love it so much. This has been spectacular. Thank you so much, ladies. And so everybody say thank you. It's really good to have you here. I would definitely recommend that if you're watching the replay, for sure, go back and watch this again and really take notes. Think about where you want to work. Think about what your experience is and everything. And we talk about this with reading a lot as well. What other things do you bring to it? If you speak a second language, if you're from somewhere, you're living in the States, but you're from somewhere else. If you're living somewhere and you're trying to get a job in Hollywood, like what are the jobs if you're out of the States? How can you bridge that gap? Because there are ways. So really being able to do that is really really fantastic. So I just want to show you guys a little bit. Like, I just love what everybody is saying and just really cool stuff. Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you guys. These comments are great. Thank you, Pride Flower. we are just loving having you guys here, and this has been really, really fun. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for everybody that attended, and those of you on the replay, go out and get those resumes done. Go out and get your coverages done, and go out and find those jobs. So proud of you guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.